Welcome, everybody. This is John Paul, Dr. Speed Selling, and this is Raging Verbalist number 206. Raging Verbalist is every week where we talk about something that, well, I don't go into politics and all that, not really too much, but I talk about something that is of interest to me and I rage about it or talk about it and go on and on. Available on YouTube. Check that out. You can always subscribe and hit the thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up. Helps out. And also you can hit notifications, but I always find those kind of annoying because I'm like subscribed to too many things. Also, we're on the Facebook group is Position to Win Book. Position to Win Book. Also, positiontowinbook.com. All right, I think we got all that out of the way, and then we need to bring in the ever lovely Sandra. Sandra, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I see that you've already gotten all the direct decorations up for us all, and you're
That's
getting us
right.
in the Christmas spirit and getting us ready to go and all of that. So,
Exactly. It's December. They had to go up.
and who knows what Santa is going to put into those stockings. So you never know.
Exactly.
You never
Exactly.
know.
That's
So that's
right.
good. So you're all set. All right. So what are we talking about today? Let's dive in.
All right. So it's SpeedStart Monday 1000 Part 2. So to kick it off, did you ever think it would go this long?
Well, now that I've completed 998 of them, it seems kind of amazing in a way. And how did that happen? Well, it happens because every day, every week, you kind of keep adding to it and adding to it. And it's based upon a real simple principle that I wrote down many years ago, which was that you we have an unlimited opportunity to innovate in marketing and sales. And I always got frustrated because people would just like get into the kind of the shallow end of the pool and they talk a little bit about selling, they talk a little bit about this, and then they wouldn't go deeper and deeper and deeper. So I really got excited as Speed Start Monday started rolling along. And no, I did not think it was going to go to 1,000. Yeah, I did not even have that in my mind when I started this thing, 20 years ago.
And what has been the evolution of SpeedStart Monday over the years?
I started out talking a lot about the evolution is I started talking a lot about how selling itself has evolved. And since I have been studying selling for an extended period of time in lots of different venues, what I realized is that sales, though it had evolved, would go through these, I would call them fads. People would come up with a fad. They would come up with something that worked. Say something like, find their hot button and push their hot button, or you know, sale doesn't start until they say no, or sell the sizzle and not the steak. And all those were kind of like great taglines. But what they weren't doing is they weren't getting into the depth of what selling was all about and is all about, which is you're dealing with people having to make a decision. And humans, well, according to the CIA, there's like 14 ways that we make decisions. I think they left out at least one, which is, I'm not going to make a decision at all, and I'm going to stick to the crap I've got, or I mean, whatever I've got. So the evolution has been to go deeper and wider and farther and talk about a variety of topics that deals explicitly with selling, also with life, but really deal with what takes place. And since selling takes place at the intersection of math, because you have to know the numbers. By the way, if you don't ever mention money, if you ever go out and say, well, John, I've got it all nailed down except the money, you are in bad shape. And the other street, if you will, the other axis is psychology, because you're dealing with humans who have to make decisions. Humans are, by their very nature, reaction machines, and they react, they are biased, they do whatever they're going to do. But for the most part, you're always dealing with how to get their psychology right and their math right and get to that point where you get to a sale. So it's evolved because I've had time to develop and work on topics for a period of time. And that's really helped out because I think it's gotten me to where I really wanted to get to and really kind of move through that.
And what were some of the technical challenges that you faced?
Well, it's funny because when I started, it was a teleseminar, which is just a fancy way of saying a conference call. And I ran into all kinds of issues, one of which is I, of course, had to have a conference call service, and would set that up, and then I had to record it, and it turned out that recording 20 years ago was nowhere near as easy as it is today, though it's still a pain in the ass to do recordings on stuff. And the first thing I did is I bought this little box, this little doohickey of a box. And what it would do is it would attach to a PC, not a Mac, but a PC. And one of the reasons why I bought a PC. And then it would attach to a phone. And then what you could do is you could then dial in, and you could hit a button and record. And it was designed really for call centers. And I used it for that. So some of the probably the first 50 or so, the audio is like, you really are listening to, something from the ancient history of this thing. And then what happened is that I started to go out and buy more and more equipment. I started talking to audio people, Dan Kennedy's guy, Steve Tyro, sadly he's gone, but Steve said, "Oh, you've got a different problem than other people." I started buying interfaces from a company called JK Audio. I don't even know if they're still in business. Always irritating my wife that I was buying one more box and one more box and one more box, because whenever we travel, I carry these things with me, and eventually ended up with a little studio that I carried with me so I could record this stuff. And and I was digital early on, digital all the way through, and so yeah, and I had to dial in, had to come up with all of these things, had to figure out a way to make this work at a hotel. One of my favorite things that happened is I was at a timeshare. I plugged in to the phone. I had to get it all working, and I had to use a phone credit card. So literally, I had to go to a 7-Eleven and buy a phone credit card, and make sure I had enough minutes, because I was going to be talking for 75 minutes long, and away you go. So I faced all those technical challenges when that happened, when I started, and it still keeps evolving. Just like today, we're trying it better, hopefully a better new setup. Camera's a little funky, but it's getting the stuff done and getting it out and keep improving it. Here's the one lesson I can tell any aspiring content creator or person, anybody who wants to get your message out. Don't let the technical stop you from getting it recorded and getting it done. Do whatever you have to do to make that happen, because it makes no sense to me to sit there and want the perfect to be the evil that stops you from doing the good.
And did you ever have to cancel a SpeedStart Monday session?
Over the years, I've had to cancel a couple or delay them. One of them that I had to do is I actually had surgery. I know everybody will be shocked that I got my nose broken in Vegas during my wild days, and I ended up having this deviated septum. So I was really having problems. So what they did was they rotor-rooted out my nose and all of that. And I thought, well, yeah, this is going to be easy. I should be able to make it through. And so I had to delay that one, because I sounded terrible, and nobody wants to have listen to somebody coughing up blood, and me included. So, but probably the funniest one is that I was with a client. We went to an event that he was speaking at. I was supporting him, and I was going to be speaking. And we check into this amazing brand new hotel and resort. It's a W property. It's in Texas somewhere. And we check in, and I've got my little bag of stuff. I've got my studio, and I've got everything. I've got all the things. And by the way, this is the same stuff that people would use who would dial in for radio interviews and things like that. So it was professional gear. Get it all set up, get it all ready to go. But there's only one problem. This is such a new resort that there's not a single analog phone line in the entire place. All the phones are digital. Everything is digital. And they were so happy and so impressed. And so I had to do a quick, video of myself, and then we had to send it out to everybody and say, hey, it's not going to happen this week. And I had to do a makeup. But yeah, that was the craziest one that I ever had. So over the years, I've had to put up with a lot of them over the time. I have very rarely canceled. I've had lots of people say, well, John, you can always fly in, and you don't have to do it. Got to do it every Monday, 50 times a year. Got to do it. Now, for those of you who want to think about joining SpeedStart Monday or listening to number 1000, it's only available for fee. So there you go. Just telling you that up front. I think it's well worth it. I'm a biased opinion. And the 1000th one is actually 1 month away from today. So it is January the 8th, 2024, 7 a.m. Pacific time. It's going to run long because it's number 1000. I'm going to go through a lot of things. There are no ads. I'm not pitching and selling you other things. I'm not sitting there saying, and everything would be great if you were just giving me more money. So I don't do that. It's great content. It's all content. And if you come on live, you can ask questions of me. Want to keep it, of course, germane to the topic at hand. And number 1000 is 1 month away. Also, if you don't have a mind to do that, and you can check all this out at, of course, positiontowinbook.com, 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 which gets me to, of course, the book. The book is Most Businesses Fail, trying to get so less reflection. Most businesses fail. The first 5 minutes, it just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. Check that out, pick that up. You can go get that also from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million for physical. You can also get digital from Apple, Kindle, and Nook. And go check that out. And if you're mind to it, you have somebody who you think is a raging verbalist, somebody who can't shut up. I know who that would be. But you can go out and get yourself a Raging Verbalist mug. Everything tastes just a little bit better with that. All right, Sandra, what do we have?
All right. So were there some funny things that happened over the years?
Staying at somebody's house, they were, they're I would say probably quasi famous, and staying at their house. And I said, look, I got to do this, webinar. I got to do it. Can't cancel it, can't change it, can't alter it. And found what I thought would be, and he had all these kids and all this crazy stuff and all this other stuff. By the way, it wasn't until I was reading Elon Musk's book about how he would couch surf. Here he's a billionaire couch surfing. Well, geez, I mean, I was doing that long before Elon was doing it. Well, I'm not a billionaire, but anyway. So I was sitting there and I'm trying to do SpeedStart Monday, and once I start, because I do them live, and I just get going, roll through it, don't stop. I started hearing this noise, and it's music, but it's not music. It's an electric bass, and somebody's playing the electric bass. And it's not quite like Smoke on the Water or something, but it's just this chord progression, and then it starts over in a chord progression. I'm thinking, can't be a radio, it can't be an iPod, it can't be a whatever it is, can't be a stereo, something. Well, it turns out that one of his sons had an electric bass lesson every Monday at this exact time. So I had to basically pause everybody live. A whole bunch of people are hanging on there, and go over and basically say, listen, you can't do this. I'm live. I mean, I can't have a pum, 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 pum. And then every once in a while we'd hear a sour bump up, and then can't do it. So yeah, that was one of the funniest things that ever happened, which was kind of crazy. And of course, when you're working with people who don't understand that once this thing starts, and I've had people say, well, can't you go down to a Starbucks and do it? Well, I'm going to talk for an hour and 15 to 30 minutes. And I can tell you that you will be interrupted no matter where you are in the world without doing that. Probably, and this wasn't SpeedStart Monday, but it's a funny version of this, is that I was speaking at an event and I had to go and do a live event, and I couldn't get back to my room. So I went into, and they had a phone booth. I had a phone booth. Anyway, they had a phone booth. The phones were all gone. They had the booth. And I got in there and I closed the door, and it was really quiet. It was really nice. And I did an hour webinar, or actually, I was only there on audio. And it was funny because people would walk by and they'd see me gesticulating and talking to myself and being very animated and all that. And that turned out to be like the talk for the next few hours. It turned into the next few days at this conference, that here's John doing that. So yeah, those are some of the funny things that have happened to me. And the thing I'm going to tell you is, you just got to hunker down and just do it, because the show must go on.
And what are some breakthroughs that happened?
Well, I came up with the premise of the 5 power disqualifiers. And for those who may not know what those are, it is traditional qualification. So if you don't qualify customers or prospects, uh, leads. If you don't do any kind of qualification, you are a fool. The challenge is that regular qualification and how people do qualifying really doesn't get to some of the core matter. So I came up with how to do disqualification. And how I did it is I was, I had moved to California. I'm selling high tech, and I was an overachiever. I had all these 3x5 cards. I wrote out all of these questions that you could ask. And this is from a school of thought that said you could question people to death and find out if they need your stuff, because they will tell you if they need your stuff. Well, unless you're going to bring in a big old roll of duct tape and tape them to a chair, they're not going to listen to too many of these things. So I looked for those fundamental elements, something that would tell me that it was either going to be a go or a no go. And I called them the 5-power disqualifiers. What SpeedStart Monday allowed me to do is to go through each of the 5 in great depth, in great detail, and really flesh it out and really work through it and change really the course of how my clients sold, how people I was training sold, and actually how I sell. So I'll give you the first 2, and you have to come along and you'll join up. But the first one is that you have to ask them if they have the money. Now, this is so important, and I don't care if you're selling caskets or selling software. I don't care if you're selling somebody a medical something like a men's clinic, or you're selling them, a big piece of machinery. You have to know what their budget is. You have to know how much money they have. Amazingly, I was working with a software company, and they had the most expensive software in their market space. And guess what? Nobody was asking about the money until the end. Well, John, if we ask about the money, they may say no. And if they say no, then what are we going to do? We work to that, but maybe we can talk them into it. All I can tell you is that if somebody walks in to a Mercedes dealership and says, look at that, how are you charging $60,000, $70,000 for a car? I'm not going to pay over today $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Well, they point them over to the Hyundai dealership. The realization is that the money is a game changer. Ask them where they fit. And if they don't fit in your bracket and what you do, then you know what? You're not going to sell them. You're not going to convince them. They're not going to be able to do it. This is why when I work with real estate agents, I have told them over and over again, don't take somebody to show them a $1 million house if all they can afford is $600,000 or $700,000. They're going to love the $1 million house. They're just never going to be able to buy the $1 million house. So it allowed me to do that. And then the second power disqualifier, freebie here on YouTube, is what I call the big benefit. So if you've ever heard of the Unique Selling Proposition by Rosser Reeves, Reality and Advertising, seminal book, should read it. Great chapter. I took that and turned that into a big benefit. If they don't buy your big benefit, if they don't really say, yep, I connect, that's what I want to do, the likelihood of you converting them is virtually none. There's more to go into it. I've got hours of material on it, but that was probably one of the best things that happened out of SpeedStart Monday for myself, is to be able to really work through all the details and learn more about how to apply these in different situations.
And I know you don't have many guests on SpeedStart Monday, so are there any in particular that you had on that you want to mention?
So I kind of have made it a rule that I wouldn't have guests on, because it's a way to cheat and not have to do content. You have somebody on, hey, Charlie, how you doing? I'm doing great, John, how you doing? And we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Yeah, remember that time when we were in Houston Airport? Yeah, I remember. So I wanted to make sure we had content, but every time I had a milestone, 100 or 150 or 250 or 500, or eventually, I think it was number 900. Anyway, somebody who really made a big change in my life, and in fact would not be where I am today. Would not be here. And I called him up. Now, again, he's not in the info business. He's not in the training business. He's in the technology business. In fact, he was one of the co-founders of Mercury Computer Systems. And John Monteleone was kind enough and was capable enough and was edgy enough that he came on, and he didn't know what the hell we were going to talk about, because again, I like to work it that way. And so that my shout out is to John. Again, gratitude every single time. Wish you many more years because, again, my life would not be where it is today. The lesson for all of you, hopefully, is that you figure out somebody who did something like that for you, and you make sure that every year or whatever, every periodical time you go and do that. So I'll recognize John, great guy, and amazing what he did for my career.
And so what does the future hold for SpeedStart Monday?
So I've been asked if I'm going to ever run out of things to talk about. Well, along comes AI, along comes how we interact, along comes processes and how we deal with customers. We have a lot of things to talk about. I'm a believer that you should always incorporate the new, but understand where the old is and where it came from. Don't kid yourself. Every single one of us sells with the DNA from the past. We are on an evolutionary path, and I think the future for SpeedStart Monday is bright. Now, will we be doing this? Will I be doing this 20 years from now and say I've just hit number 2000? Don't know, haven't determined that. But right now, I'm energized, I'm excited, I love selling, I love helping people understand what it takes to do it. And most importantly, I am more convinced than ever that we have, all of us, you, me, Sandra, all of us have an unlimited opportunity to innovate in marketing and sales. And if we do that, every single day is a potential day to win in this very competitive world. And with that, I'm John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. This has been the Raging Verbalist number 206. And for myself and the ever lovely Sandra, go and have a great one. Sandra's put you in the holiday spirit. And if you want to check out SpeedStart Monday, go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. And until next week, make sure that you go out and sell something to somebody today.